It is amazing when you stop and think about it, what we can justify when our self-interest is in play. Psychologists call it motivated reasoning. Even though we imagine ourselves to be acting in good faith based upon sound moral principles, when our self-interest kicks in, we have an almost uncanny ability to adjust our reasoning to justify our actions. Motivated reasoning was evidently at work in today's episode from the relatively obscure book of Nehemiah. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. All the while that work was moving forward on the rebuilding of the walls in Jerusalem, groups of people came to Nehemiah to complain about their economic hardship. It wasn't enough that work on rebuilding the walls meant that they weren't taking care of their usual businesses of making money to buy food. That was hard enough, though you get the sense that they took on this hardship willingly. But to add to their hardship, to add insult to injury, there were people in positions of power who were taking advantage of their desperation. Here's how Nehemiah tells the story. Now there was a great outcry from the people and of their wives against their Jewish kin. For there were those who said, "With our sons and our daughters we are many. We must get grain so that we may eat and stay alive." There were also those who said, "We're having to pledge our fields, our vineyards, and our houses in order to get grain during this famine." And there were those who said, "We're having to borrow money on our fields and vineyards to pay the king's tax." Now our flesh is the same as that of our kindred. Our children are the same as their children. And yet we are forcing our sons and daughters to be slaves, and some of our daughters have been ravished. We are powerless, and our fields and vineyards are now belong to others. It's the same old story. People become desperate, and in their desperation, they take out loans to cover immediate expenses, often at exorbitant interest rates. People with money quickly see an opportunity to make money off of this desperation and are only too willing to lend money and make a killing. The people who were involved in the building of the walls still had to buy food and pay taxes to the Persian king, even though they weren't making money through their usual businesses. But leaders of the people began lending money by taking farms and even people as slaves for collateral, knowing that the borrowers would never be able to repay the debts, let alone the interest they were being charged. Now, besides being just plain wrong, there was a law in Israel that prohibited Jews from charging interest to other Jews. Profiting from the desperation of others is inherently problematic, though there are plenty of people who appeal to the laws of supply and demand to justify their actions, as if the laws of supply and demand transcend God's laws. Nehemiah's reaction to these complaints is a masterclass in cutting through the fog of competing interests and getting to the heart of the issue. "I was very angry," Nehemiah says, "when I heard their outcry and these complaints." He immediately calls a mass meeting and in no uncertain terms condemns the profiteers, reminding them of exactly what they were doing wrong. "After thinking it over," says Nehemiah, "I brought charges against the nobles and the officials. I said to them, 'You are taking interest from your own people.'" Bravo for Nehemiah for thinking about it. I do not doubt that the nobles and other officials exerted a great deal of pressure on him to let them continue on, and it would have almost inevitably resulted in Nehemiah having some doubts about what was right and what was wrong. But Nehemiah's analysis came to one simple conclusion. Charging interest to their fellow Jews was simply out of bounds. He demanded that they return lands that they had obtained through this usurious practice and restore the people to wholeness. And darned if they didn't do it. They say to Nehemiah, "We will restore everything and demand nothing more from them. We will do as you say." Now, it doesn't take much imagination to realize that they were probably not happy about it, but they did it anyway. Because why? Because it was God's law. When we return tomorrow, Nehemiah asks God to recognize his own virtues in his administration of Jerusalem. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.